Rams house. Welcome into a brand new episode of the Rams Report by Chat Sports. My name is Jackson Durham, and guys, today we've got some draft news to discuss. Some pretty significant stuff as some pre-draft meetings have been confirmed for the Rams, one of which is very interesting as the Rams are meeting with the first quarterback in the 2026 draft cycle that we have confirmed. We're going to talk about that, plus the latest from ESPN and what they think the Rams need to do in the 2026 draft. Here we go. So, like I said off the top, we got a draft-heavy show for you guys today. But before we get into it, I need a little help from y'all. 200 likes is the goal for today's show. As we roll towards the draft, we're trying to show the bosses that the Rams Report is building, that this channel is growing fast, that it needs to be going live for big moments, that it needs to be going live for draft day maybe even. And the way we make that happen is by showing the bosses that we've got the metrics, that we've got the fan base that is passionate, and help us show that by getting 200 likes on today's video. That's how we're going to get more Rams content out here and even maybe some live shows. We were live for the playoff games, and it was an absolute blast just hanging out with you guys talking Rams football and watching the games. Really hoping that we get to do that again next season when the games get going, but that's only going to happen if we show the numbers. So give me those 200 likes today. That would be awesome, Rams house. Let's get into ESPN's draft analysis around the Rams. So this is the three biggest needs that ESPN says the Rams have. ESPN or Rams beat writer Sarah Barshop on our biggest needs. She says receiver, offensive tackle, and corner. The Rams' top two receivers are among the best pair in the NFL and could again use a high rate of 13 personnel in 2026, but they need a dependable third pass catcher. That's something we've talked about a lot on this show, and it will be a theme today as well. The Rams have Rob Havenstein's replacement at right tackle, in Warren McClendon Jr., but could add depth to the position. And the Rams have room in their cornerback room despite trading for Trent McDuffie and signing Jaylen Watson from the Chiefs. And right away, anytime you do a write-up of Rams draft needs, I think the biggest thing that stands out is there just aren't that many of them. This roster is rock solid at the end of the day. Even receiver, which we've talked about as being one of the biggest needs on this team, it is receiver 3 that is the need. We don't need a number 1. We don't even need a number 2. We've got both of them. We need a third option to just take us over the top. I think every time you read Rams draft needs, every time you talk Rams draft needs, it's always in the context of like, yeah, it's a need in quotation marks, but you're really searching to find them at the end of the day. It's depth options behind already really solid starters. I think offensive tackle is a sneaky one, though. She mentions it as the second biggest need for this team, and what she then didn't do is disrespect Warren McClendon. Our guy, our boy, Warren McClendon, has seen a lot of disrespect from draft beatniks around the NFL over the last couple of weeks, with a lot of them saying the Rams are going to go tackle at 13. They need a replacement for Rob Havenstein. They don't have one on the roster, acting like Warren doesn't exist. But she acknowledges it, but also acknowledges that, hey, Warren's great. He can start, but you need somebody behind him. Absolutely true. There is no real depth behind Warren McClendon on this roster right now. No depth you trust to start. So that's where you go in the draft. This wouldn't be a day 1 thing, but you're looking at day 2 guys, maybe second or third round options. And I always like to think of the Rams' offensive tackle strategy as developmental projects first. They like guys that they can take swings on, knowing that they're competent in developing offensive line talent. They just want dudes with big measurables. That's what Warren McClendon was originally when they drafted him. Kind of a project. He had to develop, but he had all of the measurables. He had all of the physical tools. So we think about those types of guys, like Dametrious Crownover from Texas A&M. Big body, 6'8", well over 320 pounds, massive human being that you could install on either side of the line as a long-term piece. Blake Miller, he's getting a little bit more day 2 hype, whereas Dametrious Crownover is probably a day 3 pick. Blake Miller, I've even seen him on round 1 of some mocks. I think it's pretty early for him. He's like my 6th best offensive tackle in the class. But if he slides more into the range of where I'd be comfortable taking him, I would be really happy with him as well. He's got all of the tools, and he's already shown some really solid play and a nice ability to take next steps at Clemson from being just a solid developmental project to already starting to show some of that refinement. Isaiah World out of Oregon, another one like Dametrious Crownover, all the physical tools in the book. This man is massive. I believe he's 6'8". He is just enormous. Coming out of Nevada, he was the #1 transfer in the transfer portal last season, landed at Oregon for another year of higher level coaching, but now you take him up to the NFL level for that full experience. And then lastly, Markel Bell out of Miami, helped Miami make a national championship game. Obviously, they came up short to Indiana in that affair, but he was really solid on the road to doing so. Big part of the reason why Carson Beck had one of his best seasons in a while was able to hold down the blind side for him. And again, just a massive human being. All 4 of these guys, that's the takeaway. We're looking for huge dudes with long arms that are solid athletes. That is the Rams prototype at offensive tackle. It's less about what they were able to do in college. Even if they weren't the best, the Rams trust their ability to mold guys. So we're looking for moldable balls of clay, and all 4 of these guys are absolutely in that category. Now let's switch over to the #1 option. And I left this for second because A, we're going to talk about it a little bit more later, and B, we've already hit this nail a lot. If you've been a long-term follower of the Rams Report, a long-term subscriber, A, shout out to you. You're a real one. And B, you know that receiver has been a theme on this channel. We have been talking about receiver all the way back to January. When we first started doing draft content, receiver was the #1 focus alongside corner because that was obviously pre-Trent McDuffie trade. So we were talking about guys like Mansour Delane. But Makai Lemon, Jordyn Tyson, Carnell Tate, even Omar Cooper, these are staples on our show. If you're familiar with us, then you absolutely are familiar with them. And you're probably familiar with Makai Lemon, even if you're not familiar with us, if you're an LA area Rams fan, because of his excellent time at USC. But a little bit on all 5 of these guys. Lemon, primarily a slot receiver, but excellent with the ball in his hands. Jordyn Tyson, excellent route runner, more in the Davante Adams mold, as is Carnell Tate, really high-level route runner, despite what you'll see from some pro day clips. Don't ever buy too much into that. The one pro day clip that gets thrown out there on Twitter trying to make a guy's stock go down. Carnell Tate's a really, really good route runner. I think he will be excellent at the NFL level, but not quite the yards after catch guy that Makai Lemon or even really Jordyn Tyson is. Omar Cooper, another true slot like Makai Lemon at the NFL level, but someone who is really Ramsey, according to Daniel Jeremiah, blocks incredibly well. Some great blocking footage from him. And then Casey Concepcion, lastly, maybe the best yards after catch receiver in this entire draft class, and another true slot operator. But somebody that did not make this list of 5, and that hasn't really been on our radar yet, is someone that Jordan Reed, on the second half of this ESPN article, said would be the best fit for the Los Angeles Rams. It's Dejuan Stribling out of Ole Miss in an offense that requires versatility in its receivers. Stribling's role and outside capabilities make him an ideal fit in Coach Sean McVay's offense. With strong hands and the ability to win across the route tree, he could go off the board as early as round 3. And I agree, Stribling is in that kind of a range of that round 3 category. He hasn't been somebody that I focused on as much, primarily because I see the Rams as most likely to address receiver in the first round and then not do it again. But if you were to wait, he would be a really solid option. Again, as they mentioned, he fits the Rams mold at receiver, and he's kind of what you need in terms of that bigger body target as a long-term successor to Davante Adams, who is, in all honesty, guys, I don't know if we're likely to retain Davante after this season. It's definitely a question that's worth asking as his contract is set to expire. And Stribling is very experienced. He's someone that would be able to contribute from day one. As an Oklahoma fan, I'm wearing my Oklahoma hat today. Dejuan Stribling would not like that because he is an Oklahoma State guy. Really solid times at OSU, going all the way back to 2023 and 2024. Before that, he was a Washington State Cougar, and then lastly, he finished at Ole Miss with the Rebs. 2 back-to-back seasons of over 800 yards, 1,600 of his north of 3,000 career yards at the or nearly 3,000 yards at the college level came in the last 2 seasons. So a nice trend to finish things. But of course, you always think about with these guys who played a lot of time at the college level, 5 full seasons. Dominating towards the end of your career is kind of what you're expected to do. But good trends with him nonetheless. I do think he would slide in. He would at least give Jordan Whittington some competition for that receiver 3 role. But I don't think at the end of the day that he alone would solve the problem. I would want a true receiver 3 that we know could be a receiver 1 or a receiver 2 in other offenses. That's the point, right? Of going out and getting some extra weapon for Matthew Stafford here, is that it would be an elite weapon. Is that we could continue once Davante is out of the picture, whether that be after next season or maybe the year after that, we would continue to have the elite 1-2 that we had last season with Puka and Davante, but it would be Puka and this new young guy rather than Puka and Davante. But for a year, we would have all 3. We would have 3 elite weapons, all of which are capable likely of being receiver 1s in other teams' offense. I don't think Stribling gets you to that point. Is he a good player? Sure. But I think of him more as like a Jordan Whittington style receiver at the NFL level. I think he's going to be solidly productive, maybe a little bit better than Whittington has been to this point, but in that same category. I think he would really be competing with Whittington for that 3 job. So let me know. I don't think this would work unless you double dipped. I think if you get Stribling, you're double dipping at receiver. You're going in round 1 for 1, and you're going with another one all in terms of Stribling. Do you want to do that? Because it's not really something that's been on my mind, but the more I think about it, this room could use depth and maybe a little bit more talent upgrading beyond Jordan Whittington. There's just not a lot there. Xavier Smith, and then you're down to names like Brandon Presley and True Edwards, who we really haven't seen much at all. So 1 receiver in the draft, comment X1 times 1. 2 receivers in the draft, give me a times 2 in the comments below. I want to hear where the Ramley is at on this one. I want to know what you guys have to think. And then I really want to know what you guys think about this next story. We are meeting with Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU. And not just meeting with Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU. The Rams are going to Baton Rouge. And if you're familiar with the Rams and the way they handle the pre-draft process, that's very significant. Let's hear from Nussmeier himself. Here's what he said on the Insiders this morning. I've got a lot of stuff coming up. I've got the Jets coming in the next couple of days. I've got the Rams coming into town. I'm heading out to Indianapolis. I've got Zooms every day, and I'm sure there will be a couple more visits in there. So I'm just grateful to any organization that's going to give me a chance. We're traveling to Baton Rouge to go watch Nussmeier play. And like I said, highly significant because this Rams staff does not go to the combine. This Rams staff has made it clear over the years that traveling to prospects and going to see them isn't really something that they're all that interested in doing. 99% of the time. So when they do go out of their way to go to a prospect's pro day in Baton Rouge, or not to a pro day, but go to a meeting with a prospect, a private workout, I believe this will be with Garrett Nussmeier, and they go to them. They don't even have Garrett come out to Los Angeles for this. They're going to Baton Rouge. They're taking the time to do that. That's incredibly significant. With other teams, maybe you can kind of be like, they're going to do a lot of visits like that, and it's just one of many. With the Rams, this is not normal. This is not our usual strategy and usual approach to the draft process and prospect scouting. So it's highly significant when the Rams break the pattern, right? It's highly significant when anyone breaks their pattern. Just humans are creatures of habit. We tend to do the same things the same way until we're given a real reason to not do so. And what is that reason with Garrett Nussmeier? Do they see him as a long-term heir to Matthew Stafford? Possibly. And you look at the last year of Garrett Nussmeier's stats, and if you're not familiar with him, I know you're not excited right now. And if you're only familiar with him in 2025, then I really know that you're not excited right now. Then I really know that you are going maybe like, what the hell? We're meeting with Garrett Nussmeier? He was bad last year at LSU. He just wasn't that good. But there's a pretty good reason for that. And I want you guys to hear it straight from him. Our guys spoke with him at the NFL Combine when they were out there earlier this offseason, back in March. And Garrett had a pretty good explanation for why things were more difficult for him this year and why the numbers weren't quite where they were.
Yeah, my injury occurred in fall camp, day 2, practice 2 of fall camp. How much did it affect me? It was, I think it was pretty evident. I really wasn't able to throw the football. I had a stabbing pain in my ab every time I went to go throw the ball, and we weren't able to figure out exactly what it was. It was a frustrating deal, and it wasn't LSU's fault. It wasn't the doctor's fault. They did a great job of taking care of me and the trainers there. It was just a rare deal. It was just a thing that we really didn't figure out what it was until about 2 months ago. Had about 9 days to prepare for the Senior Bowl and try and get back right for that, and so made a lot of progress over the last month, and so feeling much more like myself, which has been exciting. Learning how to retrain myself, get rid of the bad habits that I had created, and just be able to get to throw the football like I know I can.
So, pretty significant injury last season for Garrett Nussmeier was what really held him back at LSU last season. And he's been a little dodgy about exactly what the injury was. He hasn't given full explanations on exactly how the injury played out or exactly what the details of the injury are. We know the timeline. He was able to provide us with that. But you go back to 2024, and I think what's most important is he says he's getting healthy. He's back to the guy that he was in 2024, at least in his eyes, and now increasingly it seems in the eyes of evaluators as well. It seems more and more that NFL interest in Garrett Nussmeier is ticking back up to the level that we saw during the preseason. All the way back to August, you go back and you look at your way too early mock drafts for this year that were coming out back then, and Garrett Nussmeier was at the top of a lot of those. Maybe he wasn't the number one pick. I know it was Arch Manning in most of them, but he was in the first round, off of the board, in pretty much every way too early mock draft. The guy who played at LSU in 2024 looked like a first-round pick. He did. It's just the truth of the matter, especially when you could project that he could continue to take steps being developed by Matthew Stafford. I'm not saying we use a first-round pick on him. That's no longer the equation with Garrett Nussmeier. You wouldn't have to do that. He'd be a 4th-round draft pick, in my opinion, maybe a late 3rd. Even that feels like a little bit of a stretch, to be completely honest with you, just given the year of injury and how many things are going to have to come together for it to really work for Nussmeier at the NFL level, for him to really be a starter. I'm not saying if you draft him, he's guaranteed to be the next Rams franchise quarterback. But there's a chance worth taking here in the 4th round, in my opinion. And it seems like the Rams are interested in at least exploring that opportunity. Again, highly significant that they went to Baton Rouge. Highly significant that they're going to meet him there and that they feel the need to go out and watch him in person. Because this is not a team that feels the need to do that very often. But let's talk about a couple of other prospects that have also met with the Los Angeles Rams. Most of these guys either traveled to Los Angeles or met with them at Senior Bowls, and we just kind of haven't mentioned it yet, so I wanted to get it on your radar. Caleb Douglas confirmed at his pro day that he has a meeting scheduled with the Rams. I believe it's a Zoom interview with the Rams, so that's an interesting prospect out of Texas Tech. Really productive, big-bodied receiver for them. Malachi Fields, another one in that same category. You're starting to see a trend a little bit of what the Rams are interested in as far as receivers go with the bigger body types. So we'll start to factor that into our draft analysis as well, as it seems like they're increasingly tending towards these bigger body receivers. Malachi Fields in that same category. And then Keontae Scott, a corner out of Miami. He's an older prospect at 25 years old, as is Stribling, who we talked about earlier. I think he's only 23. But Keontae Scott, almost 25 years old already out of Miami, really productive in this last season for the Canes. Obviously, part of that team that helped make the national championship as well. Had some really big plays on the road to doing so, including a pick 6. But honestly, the age there is a big concern for me, and it feels like increasingly he's floating up towards the first round. So I don't know if he's realistic for the Rams at this point, but we'll keep an eye on everything that develops around the Rams as far as the draft goes, whether it's more pre-draft meetings, anything that comes out around this team that we hear, we are on it for you guys. So make sure you are subscribed. Thank you for listening to this video. As always, we appreciate your time, and we will see you in the next one. Let's go Rams.